Welcome to Uncover the Human, where every conversation revolves around enhancing all the connections in our lives.
Whether that's with our families, co-workers, or even ourselves.
When we can be our authentic selves, magic happens. This is Alex Cullimore.
And this is Christina Amigoni.
Let's dive in.
This episode includes our interpretations of copyrighted works done by the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, or iPEC. Welcome back to this episode of Uncover the Human. We are going to continue our series on the iPEC core dynamics. So today we are actually going to start getting into the disciplines that go into core dynamics. There are 10 practices that people are using to help just generally lift their own energy and awareness of their lives and how they're showing up and how they'd like to show up. We've already gone through some of the influencers and what can happen to our energy levels. We've gone through the energy levels. So one last piece of context to set before we jump into our first discipline, and that is performance versus mastery mindset. So let's talk a little bit about performance versus mastery. Do you want me to see that? I'll jump in.
Keep going.
Christina is also here. So performance versus mastery. So there's a kind of the idea that we always kind of get to this. It's a almost perfectionism sometimes where we feel like everything that we do has to be perfect. But in reality, of course, we know that there's up days, there's down days. We've talked about all of the influencers that might change our energy levels and all the disciplines we can practice to kind of increase our performance. But one really key, crucial, foundational points to think about when we're going for improving our lives and generally trying to perform at the top of our game is playing towards a mastery mindset. And so that's the idea that not everything is going to be your top performance, but everything can be a learning opportunity. Not everything has to be perfect for you to achieve your goals, but you have to be able to focus on what are you going to learn from this? What is your success going into something, and setting yourself up so that you're always succeeding and knowing what your goals are. I remember one of the examples they gave when we were going through core dynamics is being a leader that has to go give a board presentation, and your top level success might be like, hey, I would love to go get in there, deliver my message as clearly as possible, and have everybody convinced that this is the right way going forward. And then maybe your medium goal is, hey, I want to be able to show up and make sure that I'm really clear about my message, and at least then I know I have controlled what I can control. And then the base level is, hey, I'm going to learn something from this. Either I'm going to figure out the base level of success would be I'm going to learn that how to do this better in the future and have one more notch in the belt, so to speak, for experience in giving a board presentation. And so setting yourself up for things like that can help you understand like what you're getting from every opportunity, because everything can be a learning opportunity and can increase our performance and abilities over time. And that is the mastery mindset, as opposed to the performance mindset, which is more like I'm going to try and do my best at every single thing all the time and ignore all of the influencers that may be happening. You can walk into that board meeting fully prepared, but then you wake up that morning and you're sick. So now are you going to be able to show up how you wanted to? Probably not as well. And that's okay. It's just understanding. And that brings us actually right into our first discipline here, being aware of what is going on and how that might be affecting you. So the first discipline is awareness.
It is.
That was my monologue.
I'm very aware that I'm mostly listening so far.
We're going to get tired of hearing my voice today. So we think about awareness. There are 10 disciplines, and they kind of build on each other, especially the first 4 that we go into. The rest of them, there is some interplay between all of them, but awareness is a really great foundation to start with. And there's kind of different aspects of awareness. There's self-awareness, awareness of reality, awareness of the presence of others, so what influence that might be having on you, as well as how you might be able to change that, awareness of your environment, and general awareness of your choices and options. So this is a lot about getting into what is really happening and the difference between true and truth. Something can feel true, but there is more of a truth with a capital T that is actually happening. So awareness comes down a lot to understanding your own belief systems, values, thoughts, and emotional responses as facts of a situation rather than realities, so to speak. So they might be, we've talked a lot about the emotional influencer where I might be feeling angry. That doesn't mean that situation is angering. It's just that is a fact that we are feeling that way. And being aware of this can bring us into a new realm of being able to interact and make better conscious choices about what we want to do and what we want to see happen. And it all begins with being really aware of reality, aware of what the facts are rather than what our judgments or interpretations of the facts are.
Indeed. Okay, I may actually start speaking now.
No, okay, cool. Had a couple sips of tea, feeling revved up.
Yes. I'm aware of being a little more awake at this point. No, I do. I love the awareness disciplines. It has so many applications beyond just coaching. I think it's a huge application that we found that we've been using recently is going through changes, especially organizational changes, any changes in general, and any learning as well. Is we can't really understand how to move and transition to something else if we don't know where we're starting. And the awareness is absolutely key. Like first, we have to be aware of what's going on, and how are we feeling, how are we doing, what experience are we having, and also the awareness of what's happening with everybody else to be able to come together and transition to the new future and make that move. When it comes to learning, we use awareness quite a bit as a kind of an open invitation, because again, like in leadership, especially in leadership development, leadership is not mainly just about telling people what to do. Well, it's not all about telling people what to do, but it's not about everybody else. It's really about us too. If we have no awareness about how we show up, what happens when we enter the room, what happens when we speak, how do we handle our emotions, how do we handle our reactions, then we can't really influence and inspire others. And when we think about leadership as inspiring others to come together and to do things that they may not known that they were possible to do on their own, there's no getting there if there's no self-awareness and awareness of others. So it's a big theme that keeps coming back and all the time. I really can't speak this morning, so I'll let you continue.
No, that's exactly it. There's just awareness it feels like something that is almost internal, but because we can be focused internally and we can be aware internally, that allows us to interact with the external world much better, because we now know our place and what we might be doing and what we might be influencing, as well as what that influence is having on us. And the more aware we are about how we are feeling physically, what emotions we're experiencing, what thoughts we're having, and what kind of energy level we might be experiencing, the more we can react with a different conscious choice. And that entirely changes our interactions with ourselves and with other people. So this awareness is a really core discipline, because you can't really make informed decisions if you're not even aware of all of the matters at hand. And that really is going down to the realities of a situation. And one of the examples I remember they gave in this section is about a Major League Baseball pitcher who, when asked what he does, he says he gets the ball, he throws the ball, and then he goes and takes a shower. And those are the facts of the situation. And that's all that happens. And there's, of course, we think about baseball, we might think about the excitement of a baseball game, or the boredom, depending on how you look at it. You might think of a totally different emotional reaction to it. But the real facts are somebody's out there throwing a ball, and then they go and they shower, and that's it. Those are the facts of the situation. We can start from that kind of basis. We can start to layer on our own experiences and decide what we really want to take and move forward with. So just a fun experiment in awareness. This one's one that anybody can do wherever you're listening, whatever you're doing. You might be on a walk, you might be in a room. Look around yourself and start to document and note and remember all of the things that are green. Just take a look around, maybe take 20 seconds and really document everything that is green in the room.
I'm looking around for anybody listening in. I'm looking around my office. Okay.
And now, tell me all of the red things in the room.
My mug, because it's right next to me.
Aha! So, there's all kinds of really fun videos and stuff on YouTube about situational awareness, and we kind of pay attention to what we're primed to pay attention to. I told you to look for the green things, then I asked you about the red things, and it shows that maybe we don't recognize the things we aren't looking for. So awareness becomes an incredibly important part of making decisions and knowing what's around us. There's a really a fairly famous video that I remember of like a basketball teams, and they're just passing the ball around, and you're asked to count the number of passes, and he just gets so concentrated on the ball that when they go and play the video back, they're like, did you notice the dancing bear? And you're like, there's no dancing bear. It's a bunch of people like throwing a basketball around. If you watch the video, there's a person in a bear costume that goes right through the middle of the play dancing. And I entirely missed it. Most people entirely missed this the first time they like watched this video, and it's really crucial to think about this in terms of how we engage with life, because our awareness is inherently going to change our perceptions, and what we are told to and think about focusing on, we're ready to focus on. This is why doing things like gratitude journals can be helpful, because then we're aware of the things we can be grateful for. They were there all along, but until we bring that awareness to them, they're not really part of our operating agreement with the world, our ability to see the world and decide what we want to do with the information we have.
It's so true. And I think the piece of awareness that comes up too is our awareness of others. And so how much that's reflected. So when you mentioned the gratitude journal, the things that we're grateful for, if we start writing them now, were there all along. But bringing them to light and actually making the conscious effort to think about them brings them into our reality, into more of our conscience rather than our subconscious. And the same thing, I think, works if you reverse it and you express gratitude to others. We make assumptions that others may be aware of our gratitude that we have towards them, but if we don't actually express it, how can that awareness exist?
Well, I really like that. Yeah, thinking this we like to talk about communication when we talk about this in like our leadership development classes, as communication doesn't happen until it's received. It's not just sending out an email. It's when the person really reads that and digests that information. That's when communication has occurred. And so this awareness is a huge portion of it. When you send out, you might be aware of feeling gratitude, but unless you're expressing that to people, maybe it's not there. Maybe they don't understand that it's there. They don't see it. The story's going on in their head that's entirely different. I like some of the other examples they have of awareness of things that we've thought about in awareness. I mean, now I've forgotten all of them. So there's awareness.
Well, that's
for you.
good. Should we get into coaching?
So, right off the back of my head. Yeah. We probably should jump right into some coaching around awareness and what our choices are.
Our own self-awareness is that maybe Friday morning after a week's long retreat is not a good time to record a podcast.
This one may be a redo. We'll find out.
It is the authenticity podcast, so we probably won't redo this.
We are authentically partially aware of ourselves now. We are very aware of the fact that we are not fully here. There's awareness.
Yes. Indeed. What thoughts am I having? Not many. There's a lot of fog happening at the moment.
I'm going to ask you this time because when I give an answer, you usually like, oh, shoot, that wasn't the one I was hoping for. So would you like to coach or coach first? Coachee first.
Given that I'm still waking up, I'll be on the receiving end of the questions.
Okay. I'm not honestly sure which one's easier. It takes some thoughts either way. But here we are.
Neither of them are easy.
All right. Let's think about this one. Let's start with one that is going to be very pertinent to our current situation. What might be a sign that you've lost awareness?
I would say a sign that I've lost awareness is when I'm listening and I'm retaining most of the information, but I'm not quite as quick at having thoughts around it. And so I wouldn't call it noise, because that's not really fair. Like I am listening and I am present. I'm just not as present as I could be, in the sense of having so many thoughts going on or responses in my head that I can't wait to say it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, a lot of that presence, a lot of that being able to respond with effectively, feeling like you have the full information and kind of your own thoughts put together around whatever is happening. That makes sense. Some of that really conscious presence. So what might be an area of your life where you feel like you don't have that presence, or you'd like to have more presence?
That's a good question. No, I'm actually going to have to think.
This is why I'm not sure which one's easier.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone with the coaching first. What areas in my life am I aware that I'm not quite as aware, which is quite the conundrum. Because if I'm not aware of them, how am I supposed to be aware that I'm not aware of them? I would say the areas that I shortcut more often are, I would say, are family related, kids related. So when, we had an incident this morning about wearing long pants and jackets.
Or another pants on legs.
Another pants
on legs issue.
Exactly. And if these episodes go out in the intended order, you will all know and be very aware of the pants on legs situation. The latest one is a jacket on shoulders situation, where as winter in Colorado is actually looks like it's showing up in the next few days.
Today.
Today. It's now more important than ever to start wearing jackets in the morning when it's 13/14 degrees. And so that's the awareness there. Again, for me, it's just wanting to get the jacket on and move on without understanding what's actually going on that's preventing the desire to want to wear the jacket when it's 10 degrees outside.
That sounds like you're looking for some awareness of what others might be feeling, and you mentioned like the idea of shortcutting things with your family. So when you think about shortcutting in a pants on legs, jackets on shoulders situation, what do you mean by that?
I guess shortcutting in the sense of just wanting what's in my head to be just happen. But also I will admit that because the jacket on shoulder situation is not a new thing. I will admit that I was definitely more aware and willing to work through it and find a resolution and find a way to get the situation resolved and not make it a big deal every single morning. And so that was my intent. Now, is doing this, in the morning when everybody's rushed to get out of the door, the right timing? Maybe not. But I was intent in not just making it as like, just put your jacket on and then tomorrow morning we're going to have the same argument. And I even said that, like, I want to resolve this. I don't want to have the same conversation every single morning between now and March when the temperature starts going up. So how can we make this happen? How can it be that I either stop caring about a jacket when it's cold outside, or my kids start caring about wearing one when it's cold outside, or some sort of in between co-creation? Yes.
That makes sense. You've talked about like the importance of things like connection and co-creation in a number of facets of life, and connection is obviously being a big core value as well. And so how do you feel like you've mentioned that the morning might not be the place to do that? Where can you find chances for that co-creation and that co-solutioning for something like jackets on shoulders?
It's a good question, because it is one of those situational pieces where it's hard to talk about figuring out a solution with the jacket when it's 80 degrees outside and it's the weekend, and we all just want to do whatever we want to do on the weekend. And so, and I know that it's also, I don't know. I don't think I have an answer. I think the answer is probably to ask, because I don't think I have an answer into figuring out when is that right timing. It's not at the end of the day and especially not at the end of the week. I mean, the awareness of like how physically and mentally and emotionally prepared are we to have a conversation that's fairly irrelevant because it's nighttime and we're not talking about having to wear a jacket because we're all talking about going to bed. And so that's where it's a little bit difficult to navigate, because if it's not in the situation, but the situation doesn't have enough time, then how do you handle this without making it a recurring conversation? The other piece of awareness that I had after the conversation and I was getting ready for the day was that maybe I do need to just let go of wanting to see the jacket worn.
What makes you say that?
It would be the easy way, honestly. Like if the resistance is coming from my own desire for somebody else, if I let go of that desire, then there's no resistance anymore. it does feel a little bit level 2. No, level 1. When we talk about the energy levels, because it is more of a, I don't know if it's 2, 1, or 3, actually. It's a little 3, little 1. But it does feel a little bit more of a, I'll just let you win and I'll lose. It's going to be a loss, and I'm going to feel the loss every single morning while it's cold, and I'm just going to have to suck it up. So I'm not sure how sustainable that is in the long term.
Okay. Well, there's a couple of different things that come up with that. It's understandable to want to, especially something like jackets, just to want to be like, hey, like just put on the jacket. Like, why do we have to have a discussion about this, right? It's a jacket. It seems like common sense, just do it. But I think any parent out there can probably relate to this exact struggle, especially in somewhere like Colorado, where it might look, great the night before and then be snowing the next morning, or it might look great in the morning and be snowing midday. It's kind of an inherently unpredictable state, and so that does add some complexity to like even the general conversation, because it can't be about the current moment. It has to be about some of the future planning, and that's hard to sometimes spark awareness for in others, even if you feel it acutely in yourself. So one thing that comes up, you talked about like it feels like a loss over time. Out of curiosity, what would a letting them make the decision or letting go for yourself, but having a level 5 or 6 thought about that potentially look like? How could it be level 5 to do that?
It's a good question.
Level 5 again being the opportunity level, just for the the reminder, seeing the possibilities and opportunities and things, so that our listeners remember.
I guess a level 5 would be similar to the pants on legs situation, which is more of the collaboration. How can we collaborate in this? Which is really what I was trying to do this morning. Is like, let's figure this out. Let's understand what it is about the jacket that's the problem. Like, why is wearing a jacket an issue? And then let's figure out what does it look like? What's a solution that makes everybody happy. So I would say that's a level 5. Again, I don't have that answer in this specific situation, but part of level 5 is the fact that I don't have to have the answer on my own, because that's not the point. The point is to work together towards the answer.
So how would it feel to experiment with that? What would that do for you?
I think it would be good. It's what's necessary. I think it's a more of a long-term success. It's more of a mastery success rather than a performance one, which is, I think it's usually more towards, if somebody has to win and somebody has to lose in performance. In a mastery is like, well, what if we all grow from this?
Yeah, mastery is very similar to that growth mindset. So rather than the performance of like, did I get the box checked of a jacket every day this week? But are we moving towards a general co-created jacket on shoulders solution?
Yeah. Well, also because I'm not, naive. I know that the jacket can make it outside the garage door and then straight into either the back of the car or into the backpack, or be left at school. Or all 3 at different days of the week. So, it's one of those things, like, if there's no buy-in, it means that the minute I'm not looking, the jacket is not happening, which doesn't help me. I don't want to see the jacket be put on. It's not what I'm getting to. What I'm getting to is, and you mentioned it, to me, it's common sense that when it's cold, you want to actually cover up a little bit more than when it's 90 degrees. And also common sense, it's a perspective. So it's my perspective of common sense. I also would like to avoid eternal sicknesses, which, I'm sure there's all sorts of scientific debate out there that it's not the cold that causes the sickness, which I would agree. It's not the cold that itself that causes the sickness, except for maybe frostbites and hypothermia. Those are probably cold related.
Cold-based illness, yes.
Unless there are conspiracy theories that humans can survive in cold weather with no coverings whatsoever. But I think it's my interpretation is that it's the body trying to keep warm, because that's what the body is going to continuously try to do, is keep itself warm, and also trying to fight all the germs that are growing indoors, and having to the body is going to have to compromise where the fight goes. Am I fighting to stay warm, or am I fighting the germs? And that's where, sicknesses probably come from. Not the cold itself.
So it sounds like the sickness portion may be a significant part of the awareness you'd like to have, or at least that you have, and that you're concerned with particularly. Like, this is not just, it seems like common sense to be warm, but also that's going to spiral into sicknesses, which, as any household will tell you, becomes everybody's problem. Anybody comes home from school sick, it gets to go through everybody for a while.
Yes.
So
everybody gets to pay that token.
Your choice is now all of our tax.
Yes. That's what I'm trying to avoid. And nobody likes to be sick. So it's not just about me not wanting to have a sick person in the household or wanting to be sick. It's also about the fact that, like, I've seen my kids when they're sick, they're miserable. I don't want that experience for them. If it's preventable with a jacket, or at least some of it. Not all sicknesses are preventable with a jacket, but a good portion maybe. If it's possible, why not try it?
Okay. So how aware would you say that everyone else is of that thought process?
Well, I did get to talk to William, because he's the jacket mutiny person. And so I did talk to William about it and explain to him, like, this is why I think it's important. Now, you take that information and figure it out.
How'd that go? How'd that feel?
Well, then it was time to go to school. So that's where the timing of the conversation is also important to be aware of.
Yeah. So you've got ideas of like what your impact is if it's not there, as well as the potential of maybe letting go as a co-creation opportunity. What's a distinct action you'd like to try out in the next week as it gets cold?
I would say letting go on my part, and just, like, maybe it's one of those experiences, letting it happen. My son is super excited that he made varsity basketball team after jumping from developmental last year. So it was a huge jump. And even his coach said that he's never seen that happen in 1 year. And one of the big things for him is that he wants to be able to practice and play basketball every single day. My fortune telling tells me if you keep going out without a jacket and it's 20 degrees outside, guess what you're going to be missing? Is basketball. And so do I tell him that that's what I'm predicting, or do I let him have the experience and then have the double heartbreak of him being sick and missing basketball?
Does it have to be an either or?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I could communicate what I'm thinking and then let him make it a decision. And if he's got to go through the experience of missing basketball because he gets sick, well, that's the way it is. Or maybe he won't get sick and then he can tell me for the rest of his life that I was wrong.
That's the kind of thing that will come up at Thanksgiving 30 years from now.
Yeah. Or when on the podcast, when he shares that when he starts his podcast.
So how does that feel in terms of like relating to your own core values and the idea of like maybe like some co-creation of solutions and connection with people and wanting to be able to let go as well as have them develop their own decision making?
It feels good because we talked about it a little bit when we were defining awareness. What I was missing that I had been doing after they went to school as a self-reflection, and then a lot more now during this coaching session, is the awareness of why is it important for me that he wears a jacket, the awareness of what's happening in the situation and what can be done differently, rather than what we usually do and we especially expect others to do in any type of change, and particularly in companies change, organizational changes, any business related changes at work, is to just jump from this is my idea, now you go change. Just go make the choice to change. But we miss the first 4 steps, which is well, 3 steps, which is the awareness, the acceptance, which we're going to talk about in the next discipline, and the conscious choice to change. But the awareness is key. Like, without me being aware of why do I feel the way I do, what's happening, why does he feel the way he does, what's happening in the situation, how is this situation impacting our relationship and our family dynamics, I can't move to the next.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a good explanation of it. We do fall into that kind of awareness trap. So as a final question, what, if any, support would you want to test this out and test out letting go and having those discussions?
I guess just ask me how the continuation of the conversation goes, or if there is one.
I'm going to send you a GIF of just "Let It Go" from Frozen, because that feels appropriate on 2 levels.
Yes. I know, exactly. Maybe that's what I'm missing. The fact that he's Frozen related and he doesn't need a jacket. The cold doesn't bother him anyway.
And that's a real pro tip out there. If your coaching session doesn't end with a Disney quote, have you done it?
Yes. Measure of success. All right.
Well, thank you for letting us probe into that and get awareness on your part.
Should we switch it up very quickly?
Yep, let's swap it.
Okay. I will ask you the same question. What might be a sign that you have lost awareness?
I think similar to what you were describing, it's when I'm not as present. And one thing that really comes to mind is the idea of I fall into the reacting versus responding. So when I've lost awareness, then I'm just, I'm starting to like lead with my emotions. I feel angry, and then I'm just like kind of acting more angry, or I feel tired and I'm acting more tired, or I feel avoidance, and so I'm more avoidant. So when I'm not aware of those things, and I'm not trying to consciously choose, and it's not about choosing differently, it's just being aware and deciding what to do about that. That's when I've really kind of noticed that awareness is gone, is when I'm much more in reaction mode and much less in responding mode.
That's good awareness.
Appreciate
it. You've checked the box of awareness.
All right. Fastest coaching session ever.
I know. So when you do find yourself reacting rather than responding, what's that? What does that look like and feel like?
Now that I like that question, because the first thing that comes to mind is that it's when there's only one voice that I notice at the table. If I think about like the voices in my head of like, there's always kind of a cacophony of like influences and like, hey, I want to try this, I want to try that, or like, hey, I'm angry about this, or oh, I'm feeling hungry, whatever these things are, right? Or if I get curious about it, I can be more like, oh, I noticed that I'm kind of getting upset about this, but then I'm noticing 2 voices at that point. I'm observing and feeling the emotion. And so that's when that gets limited and the tunnel vision sets in, and it's only really one voice, and there's just, or not even really paying attention to the voices. I'm not even noticing that there are other potential thoughts and options going on in my head. That's, I think, the feeling that most aptly describes like when I've lost that, and when it's now just down to that tunnel vision.
Yeah, that's understandable. That tunnel vision, lack of awareness will definitely have the potential to put us in that tunnel vision. And when reaction mode is that, oh, something happens and we react, there's no conscious choice, which is what slows it down and opens up the view and perspectives. Where do you feel it in your body when you are in reactive mode?
I think it probably depends on what the reaction is, but mostly a lot of them come down to a feeling of mental buzz and mental fog, where it really does get kind of tunnel vision down to one voice, because there's everything else is being drowned out. So there's almost kind of a buzz and a mental fog. And so like I guess mostly kind of in my forehead, I feel some amount of just distraction, weight, heaviness, and I think I would go back to the term buzz.
Interesting. And where do you see the impact? What's the impact of you going into reactive mode and not taking the time to respond?
Lots of different things. I think mostly, first of all, I'm not making necessarily the most constructive choices at that point, because I'm not aware enough to figure out what the constructive choices are. I'm just reacting to things. And if I'm going back to default reactions, I mean, there's a narrow set of situations in which the default reactions of without conscious choice are super productive. There's only so many where I've gained enough, comfort, confidence, experience, whatever else in a situation to where the defaults are I can kind of lean back on autopilot and still have that be productive. When it comes to like personal relationships, that can throw whole conversations off base. That can throw entire like understandings out the window, and it just really opens up a lot of chance for miscommunication, chance for misunderstanding, as well as things that later on I might have to like walk back and be like, sorry, I think I was overreacting on this, or hey, really, I was dialed in on this portion of it, and I don't think that's what you were trying to get across, or whatever it is. So really, it's a lot of relational, but it's also just an energy drain because then I'm spun out on something that I have to go unwind later. So both of those really, whether internally or on external relationships, I guess it's a matter of having to readdress something because it wasn't productively done the first time.
Yeah, that's totally understandable, and the impact of the energy. So it's, the reaction may feel like the fastest way at the moment, but it's actually double, triple, quadruple the energy and time that's needed because of the having to go unwind and then rebuild any broken and any gaps in relationships or in even just accomplishments that we expected. And so knowing how your physical reaction is, so that the brain, the buzz and the brain fog, and the impact of that does, if I could learn how to speak today, that would be good. How can you be more aware, to use a pun intended, more aware of what's happening in the moment, and maybe pause it and take advantage of the awareness that you're getting to perform or mastery a situation better the next time?
I think there's two parts of it. There's the retroactive and there's the in the moment. And in the moment, if when I can catch that feeling, and I think I'll be a little bit more aware of it now because I don't think I had really tied the buzzing and mental fog feeling with this. Just taking a breath is a huge one. Just stopping, pausing, and be like, okay, I don't have to answer whatever's being asked of me right now. I can just take a breath and then come back into this. So that I think gives enough slowdown to start to choose and hear the other voices and look. And then in retrospect, if that hasn't happened, or if there was some situation that was for lack of a better term triggering enough to just not get to that awareness in real time, then I think it's probably about unwinding that in some kind of like journaling or just refocusing and having a moment to reflect on like, okay, here's the things and here's what I really kind of meant, and what can I do better in the future, and what might have caused this, so that I can be more aware in the future that this is a chance. This is another opportunity where it might end up being in that mental fog. So I think both of those would be decent strategies.
How does it feel to adapt those strategies?
Feels a lot better. And I think honestly, the awareness portion of just kind of reminding myself explicitly of what that feeling is. There have been some times where in the moment I'm like, okay, I'm too heated, but this is really great to kind of have this moment of reflection in general, because I don't think I really for myself understood that as a pattern. I've kind of seen it as one-off, and then occasionally been able to catch that one-off, and then I haven't really spent the time to put that all in like, hey, here's an ongoing pattern, and here's how it could be addressed both now and into the future. So it feels a lot better.
Yeah, that's excellent self-reflection, actually, to start looking at the patterns, not just the moment, and seeing like maybe there is something, maybe it's a word, a person, a situation, what I ate, what I sleep, how I slept, that's causing the reaction and the lack of awareness or the decrease in awareness in the situation over and over and over.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, because that really does help identify the both how it happens, as well as gives me some kind of foothold, I feel like, for approaching this in the future. So I'm kind of excited for that.
Yeah, and bringing it back to the influencers, what's influencing their reaction? The more aware we are of what's influencing the reaction, the more we could preemptively take that breath.
Yeah. I think that breath sometimes provides enough space to at least slow things down. And I might not find all the influencers right in that moment. And that's where maybe even after a breath, the journaling exercise is good either way, just to go back and look and like, okay, here's the influencers that were particularly at play. And just like this conversation, like it helps now to think about like, well, what are the real impacts of that specific one? How can I know that one might come up in the future? And that can usually be abstracted into some kind of larger pattern.
Indeed. So last question, what kind of support and accountability would you need to start being aware of your awareness?
One thing that I started doing with so when I was going through coaching the core dynamics piece, we did this as a small study group. And one fun thing was like, I'm going to try and practice this for the week on this influencer that we were discussing. And one thing we would do is just like pick like an emoji or something that we would send to the group chat. So I think I'm going to try and just do that. If I catch myself in some moment, maybe I'll just, I don't know what emoji it will be, but something like maybe a breath or something, or a pause or something that looks like a stop or I don't know what it will be, but I'll just send you if there's an emoji that doesn't make sense, that's the one I picked.
That's good. Well, and what I like about that plan is that you can also look back at the accountability. You have a record. So for future patterns, you could probably pick up on patterns to see, when did I send the emoji, and reflect and journal on that. And I could potentially do the same if I start noticing that the emoji starts coming in certain situation or certain times. I could reflect back, and I'm like, hey, this seems to be coming up, in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
most of the times. What happens in the middle of the day, typically?
Yeah, I like that. Just like a timestamp record as well as just a kind of quantified, right? That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. All right. Here's a very quick coaching on awareness.
Here's to being more aware. And next up, we'll have acceptance. But until then, go forth and be aware.
Yes. Channel your own awareness. And thanks for listening.